Hello, I hope everybody is well when you're watching this. Let me get my notes up because today we're going to talk about internal resistance. And the reason I wanted to talk about this today was because I've just had a lot of conversations recently with people on the program and just generally women that I chat to sort of in the course of my life, who are just finding things just really difficult at the moment. And I just sort of want to give you some, maybe just give you some ideas or thoughts to help you move through that struggle when you feel like you can't move forwards. Okay. Because I know it can be very simple on paper. When I give you a plan, when we talk about what you need to do, it's not rocket science. It's not even a lot of time. But in practice, it can feel really difficult. And, we can feel good at the start. There's a novelty value, and we're focused, we're disciplined, we get back the results, we know it works, but that isn't always enough to keep us going, and we can stall, we can tread water, or we can simply just struggle to get going. So we just need to look at what's going on when that's the situation, because it's not about cracking the whip and saying, try harder. We want to lean into what's going on and try and get to understand the root cause. And this is all about internal resistance. And internal resistance is about when our beliefs, our value, our mindset, or our fears are what is behind the struggle. That's what's sabotaging our efforts. We might have done the goal setting exercise. We might have really powerful reasons to want to make those changes. We might be absolutely convinced that we got that goal and it's really important to us, but still something's not right. And there's still a fight going on inside. We give ourselves a hard time about our willpower when we're struggling, as if we're useless and we just can't do it. Using negative language like, oh, we're just greedy, just lazy. I've heard that all the time. It's just never been the case, by the way. It won't be the case. Or we might see the blame as being outside of us. Our lives are too busy. We don't have enough time. But that never helps break that deadlock. And if we want to, we all deserve to get to this place that we're trying to get to. And we have to get through that deadlock. We have to then lean into that resistance instead and try and find out where it's coming from. So it's not a question of finding out, trying to work harder, trying to do more. It's trying to unpick what's going on and what that problem is. And these are some of the things that you can look out for. And they're all things that I have experienced or uncovered on my own journey. They're things that I've worked with other women, over the years on unpicking their journeys. Sometimes it's a combination of things. You might spot one and not spot the other. It's a bit like this sort of analogy of peeling layers off an onion until you get to you get to the core, the root cause, and that might be what it takes. So there's not necessarily an order or a sequence, because it will just depend on what's personal to you. But let's go into the first one that I've got here, which is getting out of your comfort zone. And I started here because people quite often hit a first milestone without too much difficulty. And some people can even lose a lot of weight, like a stone, without much trouble. But then they get stuck and they can't go any further. And whether you've hit a milestone or whether you've just not got started, what the problem is that you're somewhere that's comfortable and familiar. And what you're asking of yourself now is to get out of this comfort zone. Okay. Because whatever you want next, whatever changes you want to make, or whatever milestone you're aiming for next, you're going to have to demand more of you than what you're doing now. Okay. So that will mean it's not about making temporary changes anymore. You might have to go really deeper to address your relationship with food, change the way you plan meals and buy food, or you might have to be digging into why your sweet tooth is so problematic, or how you just, how you can't help yourself from just completely going for it every time you go out, and you go out a lot, so you're going to have to face into some quite difficult things, which we resist. We resist them because, one, it's extra effort and extra work to sort of think about these things. And secondly, it's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be sitting through a craving is not comfortable. Having to go through the pain of doing a meal plan when you're busy is not fun. Having to sit in a restaurant while everyone's ordering food around you and you're thinking you have to just have a salad or something is not fun. So, if we think that we have to do this extra work, but it's actually just going to make our life harder and less enjoyable, then we aren't going to be motivated to do it. Okay. And that's a key thing, because if you think I'm going to have to give up cakes, whatever it is, you're going to be, you're going to be miserable. Is that just going to be something that you just don't feel like you can cope with? Or having to think twice, plan before you go to a restaurant and make your choice before you get there. Is that going to take away the enjoyment of going to a restaurant and sitting there and reading the menu and making making a lovely decision there and having a great evening? Or it might be that making the changes that getting to this next level demands of you is going to threaten something that's important to you. Like, is it going to ruin your social life? Or is it going to affect your relationship with your partner, for example, if suddenly all these foods are off limit? Or if you're a stress eater or a comfort eater, and you are, taking away those things that you eat to distract yourself from stress is going to leave that stress sort of a bit open and raw. And it might mean that you have to actually lean into the stress and tackle the cause of it. Is it a difficult relationship or aggro at work or something like that? They can be big barriers. So quite often we don't ask these questions of ourselves, and like I say, we look for excuses that put the blame somewhere else. I'm too tired, I'm too stressed, I'm not got enough time, I like going out too much. Because these are difficult questions, and answering them may well cause discomfort, confusion, or some real fears to surface. But we can't move forwards unless we're honest with ourselves. So that's the first thing to think about. What might be behind that resistance in terms of going to that next stage and getting out of your comfort zone? What is it that you don't feel that you're worried about? Yeah. Then, now let's have another scenario. Imagine that you are determined to get out of your comfort zone and you are fine with that. Your next challenge, I guess, is to understand what getting out of your comfort zone will require. All right. So if getting out of your comfort zone means being more prepared with be more disciplined with your meals and doing a workout 3 times a week, then that's going to, take more time. You're going to have to be prepared, to maybe work out when you're tired, or spend a couple of hours on a Sunday doing some meal prep when you think of 1,000,001 other things to do. And so you're having to get to a point where you're accepting that you're going to have to do hard things, and you're prepared to feel uncomfortable at times. But what that's nearly always going to mean is going to mean that you're just going to need a little bit of time. Now, not necessarily a lot of time. Let's just say you need 4 hours a week to meal prep and work out. Okay. Now, that means you're going to have to spend some time working out how you're actually going to do that. And that means managing and communicating with people around you so they understand your goals, why it's important to you, what your priorities are at the moment. And you might have to ask them to help you, or make changes to your schedule to accommodate it, or change some commitments, or say no to some things, or drop some things, And because unless we just really get into the nitty-gritty and get practical about how we're going to find 4 hours in our week, then it's not going to happen. And one of the things that is a big blocker with women is that sometimes the only way we can find those 4 hours, or whatever it is to stop doing some things that are making other people's life easier. And usually it's because we're doing things for them that make their life easier at the expense of ours. And that might mean facing fears about the consequences of saying no, which can cause some real, I'm smiling, I shouldn't sort of be lighthearted about it, but, we can have very busy, complicated lives balancing a lot of things. And just trying to free up that 4 hours is no mean feat at all. It's quite a big one. Now, it could be something smaller. It could be something as simple as making some adjustments to your household routine that gives you that time. And those conversations, depending on your circumstances, might be easy or they might be hard. Okay. Now, I do want to acknowledge that sometimes there can be bigger things that can be causing a lot of stress. That might be not quite in the scope of what what I would be doing in this program. There could be real problems with jobs or having to cope with illness with someone close to you where you really just can't be a priority and you can't put yourself first. Or you might need, to get some more specialist help to support you with those things. So I do want to acknowledge that there can sometimes be some quite serious things that mean that you can't literally just stop, take your foot off the gas, for example. But aside from that, there are many situations where, we can change if we want to, but we still feel nervous or worried about instigating change. Okay. And the starting point for that would be just to take some time to work out what you have to change to moving jigsaw pieces around, isn't it? What would you have to change to find that time? And how would you go about that? What conversations would you need to have? What support would you need other people to, what concessions would other people need to give you? What do those conversations look like? What do you think the outcome of those conversations will be? Will it, what's the worst case? Will it really be as bad as that? I mean, I don't know the answer to those things. It's all hypothetical. But the bottom line is that we have to face up to the reality of that we need some extra time. And we've got to find out where we're going to get that time from. And not just get that time 1 week. We have to be able to protect that time week in, week out for as long as it takes. And at the end of the day, some of the things that we're doing are not a short-term fix. So there's not a finite date. It's not like having an extension in your house that'll be finished. You're going to have to exit. If you're going to need to take care of your health, you're going to need to exercise every week till you can't do it anymore, however long that is, so that's a permanent thing. So, and, you've got to think about, we've got to be brave enough to tackle things that are getting in the way of us being able to prioritize our health and well-being. And sometimes we can really find it very difficult to speak up and find it easier to just be the ones who take the burden of everything and inconvenience ourselves and let other people do their fair share. And if that's a real blocker in your life, or, one of the things that's keeping you stuck, then it just means you're going to have a think about how you can handle that and how you can tackle it and what your options are. Okay. Let's move on to something different. And this is an interesting one. Now then, it's whether or not your goals or the actions that you're having to take align with your beliefs and values. Now, if you were a committed vegetarian and I told you that the only way to get amazing results was to eat meat every day, you'd understandably really struggle to follow a plan I gave you. And that wouldn't have anything to do with your willpower, but it would have everything to do with a conflict between your beliefs and your values and what I'm telling you to do. And what's really common, but I don't think we talk about very much, is we can have there can be real mental conflict about dieting, and we can struggle to understand, our health goals in the context of diet culture. We can feel really lost in the mix of messaging around body acceptance versus weight loss. And we can worry that whatever we pick as a goal will offend somebody or will set the wrong example or will attract unwelcome criticism or betray our own beliefs or we won't achieve what we need to achieve for whatever reason. So we can end up feeling really confused about what we should be aiming for. And I'll say should in inverted commas, because we're more concerned about what people think externally. Because what's happening again there is we're struggling to be honest about what we really want for ourselves. Okay. And that's what we have to get to. We have to find out what's right for us and completely let go of our concerns about what someone else might have to say about it and really lean into what feels right for us. That's a key thing, actually, that this whole process is about, and is just really starting to pay attention to you, how you feel about things and what's right for you, because that feeling can be really powerful. And really, the feelings of struggle and the feelings of conflict and things being off, they're signs that something's not right. Yeah, something's out of alignment with us and what we want and what's best for us. Okay. And very similar to the struggle with the idea about diet culture, and probably more of an issue actually, is we can't decide if we want to eat to live or live to eat. Okay. We're all really familiar with the concept of being on a diet, of, making short-term sacrifices to achieve something. We also know what unrestrained eating feels like, like Christmas or a what do you call it? One of them holidays where you eat all-inclusive holidays. But what's the middle ground? I mean, that is utopia, isn't it? But more specifically, is what's the middle ground that will work for you, for us as individuals? And that's a place where we can accept the compromises and commit to finding out what works for us, because we might not know, we might have an idea, but we don't know exactly what it is. This is another really big question. We don't get into the nitty-gritty about what that means, because let's face it, if you want to have 15% body fat and abs and visible muscles, then you're going to have to be super strict with your diet and probably count all your calories, count all your macros, and there'll be a whole load of stuff that just won't be worth it if you want to keep looking like that. The other end of this, the other end of, another scenario is that if you're focused on just being fit and healthy, and, you're a real foodie and you want to be able to sort of have a life that's built around, trying and eating lots of food, then you're never going to be able to be that 15% body fat person with visible abs. That's just not realistic. And that's where we have to sort of start to be honest about what compromises want to have. And there's compromise on both sides, and also the idea of thinking that six-pack and barely any body fat is us buying into diet culture still, that's suggesting that thinner is always better and more visible muscles is always more attractive than anything over here that 99% of us have. And, we've got to start to feel what's right for us, and in terms of what we're prepared to be, and start working on feeling good about that and accepting that. And then what that means really is knowing where is good for us, knowing what the right lifestyle is for us, but then setting some real boundaries and some really clear boundaries around food, and not the old type of rules of don't eat carbs or don't eat after 6 o'clock or don't eat once, twice a day or something. We're not trying to create unrealistic rules, but instead we want to create some guidance that works towards what works for us, and make it easier for us to remember and keep that balance. So let's say, I don't know, let's say you want to be able to maintain a healthy weight that keeps you in a good BMI because you've got a family history of diabetes, and you know that keeping your weight stable and within a healthy range is going to massively influence whether you do or don't get diabetes in the future. Okay. Well, what does that look like? That might mean that you have to accept that Monday to Friday, you eat 3 nutritious meals a day. You have a dessert once a day that's fruit and yogurt. You're not constantly in the biscuit tin or cheating with chocolates all the time or eating fruit all day, pretending it's good for you because really it's just you tapping into the sugar. But weekends, you've got a bit of a free rein, and you know what that free rein is like. It might be that you go out for a couple of meals in that weekend, but then your other meals are normal, and that's going to keep you in that place. Yeah, we need to be that specific. Otherwise, we'll start bending the rules. We'll start making exceptions. We'll start that slide back. Okay. Now, at this point, I just want to tell you a personal story. And most of you know that I gave up alcohol about 5.5 years ago now. And it wasn't, I'm smiling here, this is according to me. It wasn't because I drank too much, but I did drink too frequently. And I always wanted another one. Or I didn't ever want to have a night when I didn't have a glass of wine and relax and have that as the end of the day. But it took a lot of effort for me to keep a lid on that. Yeah. Because like I say, I was always ready for another one. And the whole thing caused me so much anxiety and guilt. You have conversations with yourself the next morning. Oh God, I said I wouldn't drink and I did. And then you spend all day saying you weren't going to drink. And then it would be getting to that time and you're thinking, well, I'll just nip to Tesco's and buy one of them individual bottles. And you did. And then the next day you start again. And so your mind's just going bonkers. And I was always thinking about it. And when I finally stopped drinking, I experienced the most incredible peace of mind that I just was not expecting. All those negative conversations that took up a ridiculous amount of my day, they just stopped. There was no need for them anymore. And that feeling was so amazing. That is what made it possible for me to stop for good, because I had the most wonderful reward for that very fleeting discomfort of having to say no to a drink. I was calmer, I had a more peaceful mind, and this really quiet acceptance of living my life without alcohol. And I did have worries about what was going to happen if didn't drink. It was a really difficult decision. And I was going into a completely unknown place. I mean, I started drinking when I was 13. All my friends, all my family, as far as I knew, drank. And my part, Tim, wasn't talking about changing, he still drinks. So I was completely going into an unknown. And I was worried about all sorts of things, not being able to enjoy holidays. I worried it would affect my relationship. But I still did it anyway. And my life just got, oh my God, I can't even tell you, all those worries just disappeared. It didn't make a blind bit of difference. I enjoyed things just as much, if not more. And my life just was so much easier because I just was less fraught. And the key thing was that I never expected to experience that when I stopped drinking. I didn't think that was going to be a benefit. If I'd have known, would it have been an easier decision? Maybe. I don't know. I'll never know. But I believe that experience is the same feeling that we can get when we stop fighting ourselves about struggling with our diet and our food and whether we're exercising or whether. If I was able to wave a magic wand, I would, that we could just get on with it, I feel like we'd all have that probably 50% of our brain back, because we would stop having all these difficult conversations. And I just wanted to tell you that, because one of the things that I said earlier on was that we don't know what's on the other side of this effort that we feel like we have to make. And that's what's on the other side, just losing that mental anguish. And that's why we need to peel off the layers of resistance when we feel it, and not try and push it away, or not try and ignore it, but try and pick at it, like a scab, isn't it? Pick around at it and try and sort of see what's going on and ask the right questions, which I've hopefully sort of given you some prompts for here, that are going to help you get rid of any uncertainty or ambiguity about what you're doing and why you're doing it, and what are you prepared to do or not. And getting clear about what you want to achieve, but also getting clear about what's right for you as an individual and what you are prepared to do as an individual, not what someone else is thinking you should do and always expecting. What's the right thing for you? Then, if we get to that, we can focus on doing those things. We can spend less time struggling with the conflict, less, and that resistance, which is what's making us worry about food or whether we're exercising enough or what we look like. And we start paying attention just to what feels right for us and what makes us feel good, and let that be our guide. And, these days I barely think about drinking. It's just not in my mind. I'm surrounded by it. It's in my daughter was 18. I've got a house full of cocktail ingredients, Tim's drink still. It doesn't bother me in the slightest. And I think it's getting to the same point when it comes to our meals and how we eat. Knowing what's best for us, knowing our own mind, and letting it happen. And that's when we get the freedom to focus on other, much more interesting parts of our lives. When the eating just becomes automatic, we just know what our model is because we've crafted it, and we just put it on a rinse and repeat, don't think about it. And that's when we get that freedom, to do other more interesting things, use our brain power and our energy on that. And that's when I think it gets really, really exciting. So I hope that helps. I hope that gives you some, I would say, food for thought. It makes me laugh. I'll have to think of something else at the end. And I've always, if that's something that you want to chat to me about in one of our one-to-ones, then I'm very happy to dig into that. But thank you for bearing with me to the end, and I'll see you all soon. All right, bye for now.